Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with aBlogtoWatch. Today I'm going to review the Jaeger-LeCoultre's Duometre Heliotourbillon Perpetual in Platinum. This is a brand new limited edition of 20 pieces watch version of the Duometre Heliotourbillon Perpetual that Jaeger-LeCoultre introduced originally in 2023 or 2024. For 2026, this is the new limited edition version. And I'm starting out by looking at a macro view of the Heliotourbillon in operation. I'll pan out a little bit more so you can see the watch on my wrist, but this is the star of the show. The Heliotourbillon is one of several tourbillon-style mechanisms that Jaeger-LeCoultre has developed in-house. The tourbillon goes back to carriage clocks and certain types of hanging timepieces that are not wristwatches. It was developed by Breguet at the end of the 18th century for different types of clocks and, like I said, hanging timepieces that needed to stay accurate while hanging in a mostly vertical position. But wristwatches do not operate that way. They're moved into a lot of different types of positions. So what Jaeger-LeCoultre has done over the years is enhance the tourbillon to make it more acceptable to be used for a wristwatch. What have they done? Well, they make plenty of tourbillons. Jaeger-LeCoultre makes tourbillons with spherical or cylindrical hairsprings. You can see in here closely that the hairspring is not flat, but it's shaped like a cylinder as it beats. So in addition to standard tourbillons, they developed the Gyrotourbillon. That was the famous watch with Ariel. After that, they came out with something a little bit simpler called the Spherotourbillon that was gorgeous to look at and had this interesting kind of bobbing motion to it. Now, the Heliotourbillon, which is the latest development, according to Jaeger-LeCoultre, is able to truly cancel out as many positions as possible, meaning that in this motion, the regulation system is moved in so many positions that it's able to cancel out error, at least in theory. From a chronometric standpoint, these are particularly accurate. These are amongst the only types of tourbillon mechanisms that ever get like cost chronometer certification. I'm actually not sure if this specific watch has any special types of certifications on it, but Jaeger is known for being able to do that amongst the various types of movements. And the duometric concept in general is all about accuracy. Why? Well, you can see here there are two mainspring barrels. But unlike most watches that have two mainspring barrels, this one separates them between the complications and the time. So if you look at the dial there, there's a power reserve indicator right there. It says Reserve de Marche de Quantième. That means that's the power reserve for the perpetual calendar mechanism. And up here, you have another one. It says Reserve de Marche for the regulator. So that is the power reserve for the regulation system. That is the Heliotourbillon and the time. Inside of this watch is a movement that Jaeger-LeCoultre calls the Caliber 388. And this is a movement that came out again in around 2024, 2023, when the Duometre Heliotourbillon originally came out. We have an article on the aBlogtoWatch.com website and recommend that you check it out because it talks about more details about the movement. In Platinum, this watch now has a gray character to it. The gray color dial is distinctive, and this new 5-link bracelet, which is an also solid platinum, is a new development. And this is a really wow kind of watch. It feels fantastic. It's obviously heavy and weighty because of the platinum material. It just looks great. It has an incredibly complicated movement. The Caliber 388 is really an interesting powerhouse, and you can see through the Sapphire class window in the side there that there is a nice view of the side of the movement. And there's something else that I want you to notice is actually missing on the case, which is actually a nice thing. This movement, the Caliber 388, has a perpetual calendar, and it's a rather complicated one. You don't just have the standard perpetual calendar indicators, you have also a moon phase. If you look over here, there's a year. So you have really an extended perpetual calendar. There's the dates, there's the month. So in this movement, you would think that there would be a bunch of correctors, but there is no correctors. Everything is done through the crown, and that's, in my opinion, pretty amazing. So I'm going to pull the crown out there, adjust the time in the asymmetric window there. Still very legible. I like that. Classic Jaeger-LeCoultre dial style. But even though it's off-centered and smaller, you can still really read it easily. One of the interesting things about the Caliber 388 is that when you turn the crown in one direction, it winds one of the mainspring barrels. When you turn it in the other direction, it winds the other one. Most watches don't operate that way, and even if they have multiple mainspring barrels, turning the crown in one direction winds them all. The Heliotourbillon, as part of the Duometre movement, does not operate that way, which I think is actually better. But what can actually happen is you can wear this watch for a while and be like, why is it not working? I keep winding it. And you're only winding one of the barrels and not both of them. This is a larger case. It's not as large as it could be, and it wears pretty well. And I love the weight of it. But the Duometre has always been a bit of a larger movement. It's fantastic. It used to be made in German silver. I don't know if they still do that in some of them, but this does not look like it's German silver. So there's a new architecture. I don't know how long Jaeger-LeCoultre has been creating that architecture this way, but that's kind of interesting. I mentioned that the Heliotourbillon is part of a long line of different types of tourbillons that Jaeger-LeCoultre has produced. And I think it's really important to figure out, like, where in the pantheon of tourbillons does this exist? Is this just sort of for fun? Does this actually add anything significant to the wearing of a tourbillon? As I said, Jaeger-LeCoultre specifically designed the Heliotourbillon to be something for wristwatches. So the standard tourbillon looks great, is thinner, but isn't as well suited for a wristwatch wearing scenario, meaning all the different positions the movement would be. The Gyrotourbillon helped, but the Gyrotourbillon was even bigger, complicated, and still didn't actually get the balance wheel in all the different positions. The Spherotourbillon, I think, was kind of a middle ground. It tried to be a slightly more affordable version of it. Again, it was not inexpensive, but it was a slightly different approach that I think was attempting to be mechanically more simple. And my recollection is that the Spherotourbillon is perhaps where Jaeger-LeCoultre introduced the cylindrical hairspring, though they may have come out with it before that. I don't remember my timeline for all that stuff perfectly, but that information is certainly out there. I remember when the Heliotourbillon came out, there was a diagram that Jaeger-LeCoultre came up with, and the diagram was trying to show all the different positions that the Heliotourbillon could be in, because if it missed a position, then theoretically when your watch was like this or something like that, it was dragging too much, meaning the tourbillon system was in a position where gravity was pulling it and it wasn't being canceled out in the opposite direction. The Heliotourbillon does not basically have 100% coverage, right? There isn't 100% of positions, but it's something like over 90%. So they did a really good job of making sure that this covers as many positions as possible. And just look at it operate. You have this gyroscopic style where there's cages within cages. The cylindrical tourbillon, which is more three-dimensional than your standard one, is great to look at. This is truly incredible. And I love that there's this sort of cutaway here. This is quite standard amongst various types of semi-skeletonized models of the various duometres, where there's this rich sort of level of layers. But there's this whole kind of like quadrant of the watch dial entirely dedicated to this, even though this isn't what I would call a traditional skeletonized watch, which is not what I like. I like dials like this more. It's great to see the technique, but when you have a dial like this, you can definitely read the time a lot better, which I happen to appreciate. Bracelet is elegant, pretty standard, but then you have this wonderful weight of the platinum. It feels great. Not everyone's into gray, but I have to say it's very fashionably versatile. You'll find that a watch like this probably goes with everything you wear. So yeah, gray dials aren't exactly loud and they don't really pop, but Jaeger-LeCoultre is not meant for that. It's a conservative dress watch brand that focuses on fantastic high complications with a lot of engineering prowess behind them, and that's exactly what the Duometre Heliotourbillon is. Once again, this is the reference Q620650, Jaeger-LeCoultre Duometre Heliotourbillon Perpetual in platinum with the new platinum bracelet, the caliber 388 in-house made manually wound movement. It's really an impressive watch. Limited edition of 20 pieces, retail price is $580,000. You can see the full review on the aBlogtoWatch.com website, learn more at the Jaeger-LeCoultre website, and let me know what you think about this awesome Heliotourbillon Perpetual in the comments below. Thanks.